Auburn drops 100 points on Memphis in Atlanta for its final exhibition, and just like that, the regular season is upon us. Welcome into this edition of the Barn Hoops podcast. As always, I am your host, Jacob Hillman, and today we are reacting to Auburn's final exhibition game of the 2025 to 2026 season as it gears up for the regular season on Monday against Bethune-Cookman. We're also going to talk about some of the under-the-radar players that some aren't talking about as much as I think that they should going into the season. These are guys that are going to have an impact on this team. They might not have the flashiest stats every single night, but they are going to have an impact on Auburn winning. But speaking of Auburn winning, the Tigers take down the Memphis Tigers 100-71 at State Farm Arena in Atlanta last night in its final exhibition game of the preseason. Reminder, sign up now for $25 off your annual subscription at thebarnauburn.com, as there is so much to take in Auburn athletics right now with basketball season starting. Auburn football gets its first win in a month over Arkansas and gets ready for Kentucky tomorrow inside Jordan-Hare Stadium, and then the month of November going forward. So be sure you're subscribed and tuned into all the content right here on YouTube, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, and be subscribed there as well. But let's dive right into this performance by Auburn, which it's important to keep in context that Auburn has obviously been preparing for this for 2 weeks since that Oklahoma State game in Birmingham, while Memphis had its first exhibition against Arkansas on Monday night. So a little bit different preparation for both of these teams. Now, to also add some context, that this Memphis team is brand new. Not a single one of these guys. It's a rematch of the Maui Invitational Championship from last year. Not a single one of these guys, and similar to Auburn, on Memphis's roster was on that team last year. So brand new team that Coach Pearl, he alluded to of he had to go and watch these guys individually to kind of get ready for them before that film from the Arkansas game was available. And that shows me how much more impressive this win was, regardless of the preparation that each team had for each other. I still think that it was very impressive for Auburn to have the game plan that it did against a team that you really know nothing about. But Auburn came out absolutely hot in both halves, really, to start the game. It was a 9-0 run in the first 2.5 minutes in the first half, and then a 7-0 run in the first 60 seconds in the second half. But what was most interesting, I thought, was the lineup that Auburn started with for this game. And obviously, this is not going to be the starting lineup for the regular season, but it showed me, and we're going to talk about 3 specific guys in the starting lineup when we get to the under the radar guys that we need to be keeping an eye out for, that Coach Pearl and this staff really want to see something out of specifically these 3 guys. And the starting lineup was Kaden Magwood, the freshman, Abdul Bashir, the JUCO transfer who led junior college in scoring last year, Keyshawn Hall, who was the Big 12 leading scorer and who we anticipate to be in the starting lineup, and then Sebastian Williams-Adams is freshman, who might be in the starting lineup just depending on the health of Keyshawn Murphy. And then at center at the 5 was Filip Jovic, the Serbian transfer out of the international ranks and the professional ranks. So that was the starting lineup in both the first and second half, and these guys came out on fire. It was a really impressive start after not so impressive starts in either half against Oklahoma State that I thought made such an important impact for the Tigers. And it really started on defense. And we talked about this over the last few weeks about how Coach Pearl really wishes he had used more zone against Oklahoma State. He felt like that had the most success against the Cowboys and really gave them fits. And that's what we saw last night, was that Auburn was able to play that zone defense, specifically a 1-1-3 early on, transition to a 2-3 throughout the game. But the 1-1-3 is how Auburn really set the tone and got started early against Memphis and got off to that 9-0 run that was stopped by a Memphis timeout just that early in the game. It was Abdul Bashir corner three. Filip Jovic from the perimeter found Keyshawn Hall on the inside. There were so many different ways that Auburn found ways to score, but more importantly, what was stifling on the defensive end. That's where I think Auburn fans really wanted to see the improvement over these last 2 weeks, and know that's where the Tigers have to figure things out to have the most success when we get into this season, when we get into the SEC and face some of the best teams in the country. Obviously, this Memphis team is brand new. They're selected to finish at the top of the American Athletic Conference, but obviously it's hard to judge too much off of one exhibition game, and they've only played 2 games together. So really focusing on this Auburn team and kind of just going down the box score. Obviously, Keyshawn Hall, this is going to be the really what's going to happen every game. It feels like he's going to score 20 points and he's going to get to the free throw line quite a bit. He didn't get to the line as much as he did last game as he did tonight. 20 points on 7 of 14 shooting, 2 of 6 from 3 and 4 of 5 from the free throw line. He also grabbed 2 rebounds, grabbed 1 assist. He had 3 fouls, including that technical foul, which was an interesting one. It was hard to catch on the War Eagle Plus broadcast what happened. It seemed like he was just chirping, and it's something that obviously you're gonna have to control your emotions in some of these high pressure situations in games. Second leading scorer was Kaden Magwood, who again got to start at point guard over Tahad Pettiford. Exhibition. They're trying new things out, and Magwood, he looked like he belonged. He had 5 turnovers. That's the one thing to keep in mind, and something that will improve as time goes on, as he gets older, as he starts to grow out of his freshman self. But listen, if Kaden Magwood is playing 20 minutes and going 4 or 5 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3, and 5 of 7 from the line every single night with an assist, then you're going to be pleased with the way Kaden Magwood plays for you, and that's going to give you a lot of success going forward. And then the other 2 guys in double-digit scoring were Tahad Pettiford and Filip Jovic, starting with Pettiford, 3 of 9 shooting. It didn't look great early on. I thought maybe he was in a bit of a funk trying to get into a rhythm for this regular season, but he found his rhythm when he came away with a breakaway dunk, and he hit a 3 as well. But his playmaking is what was so important. He had it was 5 assists tonight, and there were some passes that were just really, really impressive. And I think the chemistry between him and Keyshawn Murphy played limited minutes. How many minutes? It was 14 minutes that he played. He fouled out as well in those 14 minutes. He scored 6 points on 3 of 3 shooting. And the reason he was 3 of 3 shooting was because Tahad Pettiford created some easy opportunities for Murphy. And that's where I see a lot of that chemistry starting to come together and build for this roster and for this team. Filip Jovic, as I mentioned, 11 points on 2 of 3 shooting, but he got to the line a ton, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. And the highlight of the game was that dunk coming right out of the gates of the second half. He went straight to the bucket, and he dunked all over a big man for Memphis. And it's a heck of a highlight, and something that we're going to see quite a bit of, because that's how Jovic played over in Serbia. He was the most athletic guy on the court. He was the guy on the court for those teams in Serbia. And he still has that in him. And he might not be the most athletic guy now on the floor. And he talked about that in his media availability this week. But he had that baseline drive as well that really just, it was explosive. And that's the same thing with that poster dunk. And we see it in him. He's got to really find when it's best to utilize his athleticism. But outside of that, Jovic also grabbed 3 rebounds, dished out 2 assists, including a really impressive pass to the inside to Keyshawn Hall in the midst of that 9-0 run in the first half to start the game. And it's really those kinds of plays that set the tone for what seems like this offense. I just think that when Jovic hit Keyshawn Hall on the inside, it's like, okay, this is all clicking for this team. 2 guys that didn't know each other until just a couple of months ago. They're seeing these things and are clearly learning and clicking together in practice. And the next guy I want to mention is Sebastian Williams-Adams. This guy is going to be special. The box score doesn't show it. He had 9 points on 3 of 3 shooting. He made a 3. The free throw shooting wasn't there for him tonight, but he was really the only guy that didn't shoot well from the charity stripe. Williams-Adams did foul out, but he grabbed 3 rebounds, in which those 3 rebounds felt like massive rebounds in this game. And that's what was so impressive for him. I think they might have all been offensive rebounds, but regardless, it was just so great to see him crash the boards. He was getting an elite position. It was 2 offensive rebounds to 1, but both of those rebounds on the offensive end were because of his positioning, and he sees the ball and he gets the ball. And I'm just so excited to see him continue to grow. And on the offensive end, he's a little loose with the ball, but that's easy to correct. He's a big man. He's not going to be dribbling the ball a ton. So I just think that those were some of the big standouts, and we'll get to Abdul Bashir a little bit later on. But I think you got to continue talking about the defense and how it just gave Memphis fits all night tonight. And it starts with the zone defense. Auburn comes out in a 1-1-3 to start the game, start both halves, but kind of transitions to a 2-3 and throws some man in there. But overall, Auburn was playing zone throughout this ball game and just seemed comfortable doing it. Plenty of switches that looked comfortable, that looked easy for this team to make. And while, again, that could be part of Memphis not knowing its roster, knowing each other yet, but I still think that we're at a point where the zone shouldn't look as easy as Auburn made it look for 10 new guys and only Todd Pettiford being the returnee for the Tigers. And what all that led to was a ton of turnovers by Memphis, 23 total turnovers for the Memphis Tigers. 13 of them were steals for Auburn, and that turned into 33 points off turnovers. That's an impressive number, and I'm sure there's some stats out there because I don't think that Auburn really had those kinds of numbers last year in the turnover department, in the points off turnover department for Auburn last year. It just really was something that even when Auburn was the best team in college basketball, that's not how they were doing it. And I think that's going to be a really important key for the Tigers this year, is to create the turnovers and really turn that into offense. And the 33 points off turnover really translate that. 19 fast break points. That's about where Auburn sat against Oklahoma State. So we'll have to see kind of how that translates. And again, this game turned into a foul fest. I wasn't really too happy with that. 5 fouls on Williams-Adams, 5 on Keyshawn Murphy. They both fouled out. And then Todd Pettiford and Elijah Freeman each had 4 fouls as well. That's going to happen when you're trying to play as aggressively as the Tigers are, but it's got to be a little bit more clean. And if you get into these situations, of course, you win by 29, you're not too worried about it. But in these close ball games, that can cost you. So I'd like to see a little bit cleaner defense, but overall, I'm happy with it because you force 23 turnovers and score 33 points off of it. So you'll take some of those fouls for all of those points. And the rebounding was an interesting one, and you can kind of look at it from this aspect. Auburn shot 53% from the field, and Memphis shot 37% from the field. Auburn was able still to get 10 offensive rebounds when only missing less than half of its shots. So Memphis gets 17 offensive rebounds, and that's because it misses more shots. But the second chance points are pretty even, 18 for Memphis and 14 for Auburn. So again, I think a lot of this is relative. A lot of this has to do with the fact that Memphis has only played one game and had 4 days or 3 days to prepare for Auburn, and Auburn's been preparing for 2 weeks for Memphis and looking at itself from that Oklahoma State game. So I think this was a really impressive performance for Auburn, and there's still some things to work on. But the fact that the Tigers dominated as much as they did was what was so important for this team, just to kind of click to going into the regular season. Monday night against Bethune-Cookman, it all starts for real. Nothing matters. Whatever's happened so far doesn't matter when the Tigers take the floor inside Neville Arena officially for the first time with Stephen Pearl as the head coach. That's when it gets started for real. And I would be interested to see how, because again, last night was a matchup with the American Athletic Conference preseason champion. And on Monday night is a matchup with the SWAC preseason champion in Bethune-Cookman. So these are teams that have high expectations and a little bit different scale, but still, you have to be prepared and ready for them to bring their best shot, especially a Bethune-Cookman that nobody's counting on, and they want to come in and try and ruin Auburn's first game under Stephen Pearl, first game since the Final Four. But I even look at the first half versus second half where Auburn is going into the break up 52-27, and that's why it was so impressive that the Tigers came out the way they did in the second half and immediately go on that 7-0 run to start things and really never give Memphis a chance to try and claw its way back into the ball game, because at that point it's pretty much over, and it really was impressive. But mentioning the starting lineups with Kaden Magwood and Abdul Bashir, and then obviously Keyshawn Hall's in there, Sebastian Williams-Adams, but then Filip Jovic at the center position with Keyshawn Murphy limited. I'll be interested to see what that looks like Monday night. But about the under-16 timeout for both halves was when Taha Pettiford, Kevin Overton, and Elijah Freeman came in. And in the second half, Keyshawn Murphy also came in at that point of the ball game. And I think it's interesting because they looked really good and fresh and ready to go. And that's just a really tough matchup for an opposing team to, obviously they're starting their best players, but then they bring up their backups and Auburn's bringing that in. I don't think that's going to be necessarily the strategy in the regular season, but you might be able to switch some of those guys, whether it's Elijah Freeman and if Keyshawn Hall slides up to the 3 and you put Jovic at the 4 with Keyshawn Murphy at the 5, then you can bring Freeman in fresh at that under 16 timeout and provide a spark plug, or Abdul Bashir, he can come in. He and Kevin Overton can really flip that role as well throughout the years, depending on who the hot hand is, who is playing better defense. Because again, that's, I think, what this coaching staff wants the most in the first few minutes of a ball game to get settled in is to play elite defense. And I think that was a challenge to those guys tonight, and they really rose to the occasion with those big runs to start each half. And I also thought one other key from half to half, I thought in the first half, the passing was a little bit lazy. It wasn't terrible by any means, but I thought in the second half it was a little bit sharper, a little bit crisper, a little bit more decisive. And that was a big help in kind of maintaining that lead and letting Auburn just kind of cruise its way to a 29-point victory in Atlanta. But as I mentioned, I want to talk about, we talked about the leaders in Taha Pettiford, Keyshawn Hall, Keyshawn Murphy a few weeks ago. Last week, we talked about who the X factors are going to be in Elijah Freeman and Kevin Overton. And now let's talk about the guys that no one's really talking about. And obviously, Auburn fans are going to be talking about them more, but I'm thinking more from the outside of an SEC fan that might not be familiar with this roster. And it really does start with Filip Jovic and what he's going to bring to the table as a former professional basketball player and a guy that is used to being the guy on the floor and on a roster that isn't super big. Obviously, tonight we saw with Keyshawn Murphy limited 14 minutes. I thought the Tigers struggled a little bit against Memphis's bigger lineups in that game, and that's kind of why the rebound numbers look the way they do. And it's something that Jovic, Emeka Oporum, Sebastian Williams-Adams, and obviously Keyshawn Murphy, that they're going to have to really key in on when they're facing 7-footers in the SEC or in non-conference play. One way or the other, they're going to have to find a way to find that elite rim protection. But again, Jovic, he averaged 12.4 points, four rebounds, and 1.2 assists per game in his last season of pro ball in Serbia. And that's the thing is, like I said, he's not going to have to do those kinds. He's not going to have to perform that way in every game this year for Auburn to be successful. If he can do what he did tonight, which is close to the numbers he averaged, but 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, almost right on that number actually, then Auburn's going to find a ton of success. And again, tonight, Keyshawn Murphy's not 100%. They want to hold him out a little bit and make sure he gets healthy for the regular season. And that's where Jovic steps up and fills in that center position. And Sebastian Williams-Adams gets some key minutes at the number 4 spot as a starter. And Keyshawn Hall, he starts to learn a little bit about the wing position, as he's going to have to be the 4 if it's Pettiford, Overton, Freeman, Hall, and Murphy as the starting 5 in the regular season. So it was really important, I think, for the entire roster to kind of see that and go through those rotations and figure out exactly what works best. But Jovic, again, whether it's as a 4-man or a 5-man, he's going to have to find his role and understand what's going to help the team the best. And I think exactly what he did tonight, where he picked his spots to show off his athleticism and his explosiveness. And he really did that with that poster dunk and the baseline drive earlier in that game. But most importantly, he got to the free throw line several times, and it was 7 of 8 from there. So if he can continue that, then again, Auburn's going to get to the free throw line a lot this season, 42 times in this game after doing the same thing against Oklahoma State. So I just think that's going to be a trend for Auburn this season, and a lot of opposition is not going to like that, but that's going to be how Auburn plays this year. And then moving on to the next under the radar player, I want to focus on Abdul Bashir, who had a big game as well for Auburn last night. 9 points, 3 of 5 shooting, all 3 and 5 shots from 3-point range. And you can tell Abdul has a lot of range. All those threes are pretty much from NBA range, and he has it in him. He also grabbed 1 rebound and dished out 2 assists. What's interesting about Abdul is he really does look to pass. That's what I noticed with those 2 assists. I mean, he got the ball. You can tell he's looking at the shot, but he still finds the open man, and that guy knocks it down. But last year, he was so prolific in the scoring department in junior college, leading junior college in scoring with 27.2 points per game. He was north of 40% from the floor, 36.8% from 3, and he had 4 40-point games, including a career high 49 points in a game. So it really is something that he's going to be the spark plug. And if his defense improves, then look out, because this is a guy, and he's also he's a junior, so he's got another year of eligibility, and that's something that could really translate into a multi-year transfer that we talked about so much under the Bruce Pearl era, and now the Stephen Pearl era. It's going to be a similar strategy, I would imagine, with these transfers. Is all right, let's get a guy that's got more than 1 year of eligibility and develop them and turn them into an NBA prospect. And that's not to say, okay, Abdul Bashir is a surefire NBA prospect, but he has the ability, certainly, with the 3-point shooting that he has. And if he can turn the corner defensively, then again, he's going to play more and more minutes and compete with Kevin Overton for that starting position. So that's what I love to see out of Bashir last night was that one, he just made the 3. He only played 14 minutes against Oklahoma State, and it just didn't seem like he got involved as much. But last night, he was heavily involved in the offense in just 18 minutes of action. But still, when he got the ball, he made something happen with it. And that's what was great to see. And same deal with Kaden Magwood, who is the freshman point guard and really trying to fit into this team and this rotation. And how can he do that with Todd Pettiford leading the way? Can he get some minutes at the 2 guard? I think he can with the way he played last night. And while he turned the ball over 5 times, and that's going to get I think a lot of fans are going to see that, and that's going to stick out to him. Again, he's not going to be the one that you're relying on to take care of the basketball for 30 to 35 minutes in a game. He's not going to be the primary ball handler. He will be at times, and I think that it really can be a learning experience last night of, hey, if you are the primary ball handler, it is your job to take care of it. While again, like I say, he scored 15 points, so you're taking that in his 20 minutes of action and as well as the 3 rebounds and the 1 assist, because that's how a freshman point guard is going to play. Todd Pettiford had plenty of games like that last year, and I think that it's really important for Magwood to continue to get these minutes and really dive into this role of the backup point guard. And like I said, if the time calls for it, let's see him at the 2 guard and see really how well he can shoot the ball. And again, how well he can play defense, because that's going to be the concern if he and Tahad Pettiford are on the floor at the same time. Tahad's defense continues to look improved, and he's clearly focused on that, and he wants to make sure he makes an impact on both sides of the floor. I imagine NBA aspirations and NBA scouts told him when he went through that process that the defense has got to be better, and that's part of why he came back to play under Coach Pearl and the rest of the staff. So if his defense can continue to grow at that level, then I don't see any reason why he and Magwood can't be on the floor at the same time and just provide two elite ball handlers that can shoot the lights out of the gym and also be a heck of a playmaker. Because again, while I highlighted Pettiford's 5 assists and how he was able to find Keyshawn Murphy driving to the basket and let Murphy kind of make his own shot from there, I thought Magwood, even with those 5 turnovers, he was doing a good job at looking for the opening shot, and that'll continue. He will learn from that as well. So Monday night, it starts for real. Auburn, Bethune-Cookman, Neville Arena at 7 o'clock Central, as the Tigers will sell out their 71st consecutive game, which is an awesome number. There are still a few standing room only tickets available from Auburn at aubtix.com. So if you haven't been to Neville Arena in a while, or you just want to get to see this team, learn this team, that's a great opportunity, because after the first 4 home games, every game sold out through Auburn, and you're going to have to pay those secondary market fees, and that's never a fun time. But you can get tickets for $35 now for tip-off on the Plains on Monday. So if you're trying to get to a game, now is a great time to do it here in the month of November and see Stephen Pearl and the Tigers get their season underway. So we're going to have all the coverage this season right here on the Barn Hoops podcast, on the Barn Auburn Podcast Network. So be sure you're subscribed here on YouTube, as well as wherever you listen to your podcasts, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And again, sign up now for $25 off your annual subscription at thebarnauburn.com, as all the content surrounding Auburn football and now Auburn basketball will be housed right there. Follow at @thebarn_Auburn on Twitter and Instagram. So we're going to have a reaction to these games that start off the season, and how we see the Tigers continuing to trend leading into that Houston game in Birmingham, because that's the first key one. You expect Auburn to handle business these first 3 games against Bethune-Cookman, against Merrimack, against Wofford. They should, and if they do, then that makes that Houston game that much more important. Of where is the benchmark? Is Auburn a top 25 team in the country? Is it a top 15 team? We'll find out in that Houston game. So we'll cover it all and see how things develop over the next few weeks as Auburn gets its 2025-26 season underway in its first year under head coach Stephen Pearl. So excited to bring it to you. So as always, thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Barn Hoops Podcast.